Welcome back to my workshop journey. Just about to cut the hole in the router table fence, and once that's done I can then really start using it for rough things. Everything needs to be attached firmly at the back first with the dust extraction, but I really want to make sure that the hole in the front is in the right position, and that way I can make sure that air will funnel into it. Several ways I can do that. I can do it on the table saw, I can do it with a router. I'm going to use a jigsaw, basically because it's just quick and simple. So let me get the jigsaw out. Now, when I first conceived this project, I was only going to be using a pair of the cutters on an arbor, and the maximum height I could get for that was 30mm. So originally I'd only gone up from the base up 35mm. Now I'm getting a longer arbor, so I can cut up to 50mm separation between the two cutters. I'm extending that up to 65mm to give me that little bit extra, but make sure that the diameter is also big enough to allow for this 60mm cutter. That's the biggest one that I've got, so I've just marked the new line and opted for the blade from Bosch that is specifically for precision cutting. So just get my ears and make the cuts. Now, the nice thing about this blade is it gives a really nice finish underneath, which is the face side, of course. So what I should have done is drilled a hole in the corner just to take the blade. I'll do that now. There we go, all done. Now just cut the same sort of hole on the base. Of course, this can stop at its 35mm because it doesn't need to go back any further. So can you see that's a lovely smooth finish, and that's the front of the fence. So that will give me plenty of clearance for the cutter and the arbor. And if I just get rid of this, that will go in there like that. So that's a nice hole for the vacuum unit. Okay, so what I've got to do now is just make sure this needs to extend a little. I had thought chop this end off, but I think what I might do is just get the corner chisel and take out that top end just to extend it a little bit. And so with the two braces in, that is perpendicular, perfect 90-degree angle. That's exactly what I wanted. The next thing is to decide where to put the dust extraction port. That's roughly the pipe that I'm going to be using. So I could put it on the top, I could put it on the side, or I could put it on the back. Not quite decided, but what I'm going to be doing is using a hole saw on the pillar drill. So that will give me a nice clean finish anyway. So that's the next decision to make. I've opted for the top of the dust extraction port as the best place to put things. Now what I am going to be doing is, that's the piece of tubing, the 62-63mm that I'm going to be using. The closest hole saw I have is the 64mm. That's fine. I'm going to, on the inside, use one of these connector pieces. That will go on to the pipe, hold it in place, and then I'll be able to attach it, another one of those on the outside to hold everything together. So set the saw up. I've got a little dimple here, which is where the centre of the drill will go, and that's roughly in the middle of the top. Use a scrap piece of wood underneath. one hole. That goes through nicely. That will go on there, and another of these connectors on the outside, and that will hold the pipe very firmly, and then I can put another pipe into the equivalent of that on the outside for when I need it. Good. And there's the finished product. A small piece of 63mm piping with a straight connector on one side to lock that into place, and the 90-degree bend to take it away from the table. That will be fine. That will go into the dust extraction port nicely, and all I've got to do now is drill the 2 holes to hold everything to the bench, and then I can start gluing up. Right, I've drilled 2 holes. I opted for a 9mm drill because these are 8mm bolts, and did that on the pillar drill. That's centered on the table nicely. That will allow me to move everything very securely, but most importantly, if I can remember where I put the nuts, there we go. That will lock everything down very securely. Good. After my my last comment yesterday about where I was at with the router fence, I did realise that I have actually 2 more things to do before I glue it all up, and that's to work out and cut where the T-tracks are going to go. So where are they going to go? That's the front. I'm wanting 2 T-tracks, one 19mm, and that's going to go along the front, and then there's going to be an 8mm that's going to go along the top, and that top one is so that I can run stops to stop work going one way or the other. So the 19mm T-track, it's for the set of featherboards that I have. Now what I want is to position this where it will work the best, obviously, and you can see from that if I'm going to be doing a thin piece of work, then it needs to be that far down. That will go right up there for when it's not needed, but it does actually need to be down here somewhere. So pencil, it's to be about there. That's fine. Okay. Now I did order 2 lengths of 19mm T-track. I ordered these from Rutland's Tools, and that will make them identical to the ones that are already here. Now these come in 1 metre lengths. I'm marking for the internal dimension is here, So the T-track needs to go outside there and there. Now this will make it 32mm, I think. Let me just double check with the calipers. Yes. That means it's going to have to be a dual pass on the router, and because it's going to go down 12.5mm, I'm really going to have to do that in several passes. But the largest straight cutter that I have is 25mm, so working from this direction I'll be cutting that side first and then reversing everything and coming back this direction. And I will be working on the fence that attaches to the router itself. So let's get set up. Right, we're all set up. The fence is attached, the 25mm cutter is installed. The two marks that I've made are here, and with this first pass I'm only going down about 7-8mm, and I'm going to be working to this left hand side from the way I'm looking at it, the right hand side from the way you're looking at it, and cut that. Then I will lower the cutter, make the second pass to take it down to 13mm, and then reverse the work and come back the other way. Right, ears on. Dust extraction is hopefully going to work. That hasn't gone down at all. Okay, I will get the hang of this. Let's try again. Right, that's a nice good cut now. A little bit of a wobble here, as you remember, but that's as deep as I need it. And this is where a little tip I came across on Stumpy Nub's YouTube channel. Thank you to the team over there in America. Always work from left to right with the router, because then the cutter will be pulled into the work, which is why I could almost operate this router one-handed as I was guiding the piece. And that's why I'm going to need to now turn the piece around so that I'm still working left to right, and that way it will pull into this side of the work. Okay. And that is going in very nicely, so at least the width is correct. Okay, now just take the depth all the way down to the bottom. That is a good, clean, even cut, and that goes in. It is actually a little bit proud, so I will have to take that down maybe 0.5 millimetre. Okay. That is now nice and flush. That's a comfortable fit. Good. The top T-track, 8 millimeters. Now that means the ultimate width is 19 millimeters. And I had thought I had a full 1 meter length. Obviously I don't. That's all I have left. That's fine, because all I will need is to cut the whole length of the piece, and then I can reposition it should I need to. But what I'm going to be doing is working off the front of the fence, setting this flush, and that way it won't impede anything coming along the front, but I will be able to work clamping it in. So I did miscut a little bit. It's not quite on the edge, it's a little inset, but that's fine. But that's nice and flush with the top, and that means I can, if I need to, reposition that. This is the T-track then, the 19mm. I've marked the length from the fence, so all I'm going to do now is cut that down with the angle grinder, but because this is metal, I'm just going to put some gloves on. And one T-track measured to length. I was going to immediately start gluing up at this point, but I've realised, let me just get the cutter out. I was thinking that the slot cutters that I was going to be using to cut the tenons, I thought those were the biggest cutters that I'd got, which is why I made that hole 75mm to allow for the 60mm cutter, thinking that was the biggest one that I'd got. I've remembered, no, this is the biggest one I have. This is a panel raising cutter that I'm going to be using for the big project in a few weeks' time, and it actually has another bit of the cutter that goes on the top, but that's the basic panel raiser, and you'll notice that is quite a bit bigger than the existing slot, so it's going to be easier if I cut that little bit out now before I start gluing up, and that way I'll be able to glue up and won't need to disturb anything else. Now, not only does that part of the slot need cutting, but the rear of it does as well, because this diameter is 45mm. Where the panel raising will go, will need about 40mm to the back. So I'm just going to make sure that that is actually big enough as well. Otherwise everything will get messed up. So that distance there is 45mm. I could do it. I think I might give myself another 5mm on the base, so if I cut out another 5mm on there, and that won't need the full height, but it will need taking out the total length of that is 85. If I take that to 90mm, so I need another 10mm either side of that, just to make sure that it clears. But I only need something like that, a little corner out like that. So that's what I'm going to be doing next, and then we can come to gluing up. I thought I'd just show you here the cutter that I've got. So I fitted it into the router because what I need to do is make sure that I'm cutting the fence correctly. So there's the cutter, there's the fence against the cutter, and so I need to make sure I'm going to be cutting high enough, but only taking off exactly what I need, because really I don't want this hole any bigger than I need to have it. So that is as high as the cutter will ever go, because it is actually just above the table base. So it won't go any higher, because otherwise I'll be leaving an edge underneath the cutter, and that's something I don't want to do. But that's as high as it will ever be, and so really I'm only taking off something like that, and no more than that. And that is 15 millimeters high and 10 millimeters wide. So I'm just taking off that little corner on both sides. That's that. On the base, I've opted for an extra 10 millimeters all round. So that's what I'm going to be cutting now, and I'll see you the other side. So the gluing up process on the baseboard is going to be in several stages, I think. I'm going to leave the two braces out at the moment, just so that I can concentrate on clamping up the dust extraction unit. Now everything fits nicely. I know where things are going to go. It's just a case of next process. I think what I'm going to do is drill through all of these so that I can then screw up into the other components. That will just give everything that little bit extra solidity as I glue and then hold everything in place. Now I'm going to be using these. I've just got these off the shelf. These are 20mm, 4mm, 20mm screws. They are actually going to be longer than that, but I am going to use the 4mm gauge. Now, one little handy gauge that I've had for years from the Good Woodworking magazine, the wood screw gauge. It just gives me the gauge of the screw, clearance size, pilot hole size, and for the 4mm the pilot hole is 3mm, which is that one there. So that's the drill that I'm going to be using. I'm just going to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 holes in there, and then we can start gluing up. So scrap piece of wood underneath there so it doesn't break out, and roughly in the middle. And what I will do, I think now, before I do anything else for gluing up, I'm just going to countersink those. Before I have anything to impede me. There we go. Good. Now we can get on with gluing. So make sure I've got the right pieces in the right holes. And the right way up, of course. And that's the theory, and this is the tightest piece, but no matter. I know where everything's going. Everything is square. That's the main thing. Right. Use a slightly bigger brush than I normally do because there is more to glue up. Make sure there's plenty in the joint. There we go. So, I must say this is one of the biggest projects I've ever undertaken before I even start the major project that this is all in aid of. So that's that, clamp that. Not big enough. Two bigger clamps there. So that's the back of the dust extraction, gluing to the two sides. Those are in very firmly into the two slots. That's fine. The top will go like that, and I'll need a couple of, or at least one larger clamp. And you'll notice all of the scrabbling around that I've got. That's really what this workshop journey is all about. Me trying to find better ways to do things. I have a lot of sorting out of the shed to do, just so that I can work better. Okay, that's that. The top is a firm fit in there. Like that. That will glue and clamp. we go. And that is forcing everything together. That's nice and tight. That's nice and tight. Okay, that is just a little bit of tidying up with the glue running out at the back there, but we can leave that until next time, and then we'll glue everything to the face. Okay, thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.